In today's video, we're going to learn how to make a top hat. You can adjust the height of the hat very easily by adding more rows, and also the brim, you can make it wider by adding more rows. This is the top of the hat. You could block the top of this hat by using some really stiff cardboard and covering it with cling wrap or the clear plastic that you put over food to keep it fresh, and you could wrap your round piece of cardboard in that and you could block your hat that way. I've got something a little bit funny to show you too. The dog has just grabbed a bone and it's got ants on it, so he's probably going to get cranky. What's wrong? Got ants on your bone? He was just barking in the grass and I thought he had a snake and he really scared me, but he was just trying to get the ants off his bone. As you can hear, there's a thunderstorm coming in here. Sorry guys, I got distracted just before. I thought the dog was trying to get a snake, but it ended up being ants on his bone that he'd left outside. Anywho, so if you want to block the top of this hat, yeah, like I said, trace around the cardboard, a really thick piece of cardboard, cover it in cling film or glad wrap or the clear plastic that you put over food to keep it fresh, and then put it on something so it's on a stand so that you can get your hat over the top of it, and this should block it. And you're going to spray it with some hot water as well. That's why you'll need to cover your cardboard in plastic. And I think that should work, but I don't think I need to block this hat because it's not very tall. I like how it dips at the top. If you want it flat, you might have to block it so it stays flat. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's just zoom out a bit. Don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe. There will be plenty of more videos coming up. So let's get started on the lesson. So for this project we are going to use 2 strands of yarn at once. And we're going to use the single crochet stitch because we want our hat to be nice and firm so that it will hold the shape in the top of the hat. So grab your 2 strands of yarn. I'm using 2 strands of 8-ply or double knit, which normally recommends a 4mm hook. So you guys can use 2 of your worsted weight if you wanted to. You won't need as many increase rows as I do because my yarn is a lot thinner. So there is a video to help you decide how big you need to make your beanie. What we need to do is just keep increasing until we have the circumference of the head we are making the hat for. Normally you would make it a little bit smaller because it will stretch. I don't think this is going to stretch all that much, so my head circumference is 58. I would probably only make it 56.5, 57 centimeters because it's not going to stretch too much because our stitches are going to be very nice and tight. I'm using a G or a 4.25mm hook. Like I said, it recommends a 4mm for 1 strand of yarn. I've just gone up a little bit in my hook size. I probably could go up a little bit more, but my crocheting is very loose, so I want a smaller hook so I get nice tight stitches. So what we're going to do, you can start with a magic circle. Personally, they drive me crazy and I can just never feel comfortable when I do them, especially on camera, so I'm sticking with just a slip knot, and then you're going to chain 4. So if you do the magic circle, you don't do the chain 4. So this part you'll just do a magic circle, you won't do this part. So you're going to go into the first chain and then join it with a slip stitch. Then we are going to chain 1 and we need to work 12 single crochet stitches into the middle, so into this middle part here. So you're going in with your hook, working over your tail, so just hold the tails here over, so just holding it across the top of the chains you got there. So we're working 12, so that's 1, 2, 3, and forgive me if I go off screen because my yarn is not being very nice today, so it's going to keep getting stuck. I'd like to pull the yarn from the centre of the ball, but the ones that I am using at the moment will not do that. So just bear with me as I get frustrated with my yarn. So what do we got there? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8. If you're running out of room, just grab your stitches and hold this side and grab that end and just pull your stitches back around, and that will give you some more room to go in there. So it was 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. And by doing the magic circle, you would pull the tails that you have now and that will close up that hole there. But I've got these ends I've been working over. They're not very long, they could have been longer than that actually. Just pull on that, and because you've worked over them, it will close up the hole as well. So that's what I'd do instead of the magic circle, because like I said, I'm not confident with that one for some reason. I feel all fumbly. I feel like I can't do it properly. So once you've got your 12 stitches, we are going to join to the first stitch. So going to the first stitch, and because we've got 2 strands of yarn, when we look at the top of the stitch, we're actually going to have 4 loops, or 4 little bits across the top. So you know how normally we have 2, so that would what it would look like normally. You just have 2. Because we've got 2 strands of yarn, that one there is counted as 1, even though there's 2. So then the other side here, if we can find it, has 2 as well. See there, 1 and 2, but that's counted as 1 as well. So that's your first stitch or loop that you go under, and then there's your second one. So our 2 strands are counted as 1, and they are going to twist. Mine aren't twisted at the moment, but they are going to twist as you go along. That is perfectly normal. That is perfectly fine. Don't get too stressed if they twist. Okay, see how they've twisted together there as I've picked it back up? Perfectly normal, and there's no need to worry at all. So you've got your 12 stitches. What we want to do now is put an increase in every stitch around, and that's 2 stitches into the same stitch. So I'm actually going to do my, normally you can chain up 1, I'm going to work the single crochet into the, where we slip stitch, see that hole there, in here, I'm going to go into there instead of my chain 1, so going in and grabbing that, working a single crochet, and I think that looks better than just your chaining. Sometimes your chaining can leave that funny seam up the side, so putting another one into that same stitch, this gets rid of that horrible seam that drives me crazy. Into the next stitch, working 2 single crochets into the same one, so going in every stitch around. And working with a smaller hook and yarn that is thicker than what you should be using for your hook, so you're using a smaller hook that's recommended for your yarn, you may get sore hands. So with this project you might want to have a rest every half hour or so, get up, walk around, grab a cuppa, chocolate biscuit, So when you pull it through, make sure you've got both yarns. See how I've only got one there? The other one's back here, all on his lonesome. So we've got to pull that back out, making sure you've got the 2 strands there. So I'll start that one again. So what do we got? We've got 2 into that one, so we're working our first of the 2 into the next. So continue this all the way around. And because this is a single crochet, like I know that I have to start there, well, you might want to put a stitch marker in there somewhere, because it's a single crochet, it's not very high, and you might even just keep going and not realise that it's where you started. So you can use a bobby pin, you can use a piece of yarn. I saw an excellent tip on, I'm going to get this wrong, Dee's Crochet Creations. If it's wrong, I will put the proper name across the screen. Using a bobby pin, a hairpin or hair clip, just through the stitches. I actually use that too now, since I saw that fabulous idea. Thanks, Dee. It's because it's a lot easier to get out than this pin, and plus you're not going to stab yourself with a bobby pin, are you? So 2 in every stitch all the way around until we get back to our stitch marker, or if not using one, back to the beginning. So when we get around to the other side, we need 24 stitches. So make sure you got 24, and then we are going to join into that first stitch. Let me take my bobby, not a bobby pin, what is it? Nappy pin, safety pin. Take that out and join with a slip stitch. So now we are going to work a single crochet, or you can chain 1 into, see how the yarn, that yarn there is where we've slip stitched, and it's coming out of this hole here. I know it's really hard to see because the stitches are so tight. Going through there and then working your single crochet. Grabbing your stitch marker, putting it into the stitch you just completed. And now we want to work a God, brain's not switched on today. An increase into the next stitch, because what we're going to do is work 1 single crochet by itself, an increase in the next, 1 single crochet by itself, and an increase in the next, and then we repeat that the whole way. So we've got 1 single crochet by itself, going into the next stitch, working a increase, next one, 1 by itself, sorry, fine with the yarn again. So that was 1 by itself, so in our next stitch it's an increase, that's 2 stitches into the same stitch. So that's 1 by itself, in the next one, 2 into the next. So can you remember that? So it's 1 by itself, 2 in the next one, 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one. So you're alternating. So it's 2 in that one, so it's 1 in that one, 2 that one, 1 in that one, 2 in that one, and you're going to repeat this all the way around until you get back to your stitch marker. So we're always ending on an increase in our round. So we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch, so it should look something like this. Got a little disc. Now this is starting to go a little bit wavy, so we'll see what happens, but if it does start to go wavy, just add 1 stitch in every stitch around, and then see how that helps you if it's going too wavy. This is only a little bit, so if I squash it down, it actually lays flat. So we'll see what happens. We need to do our single crochet in that same stitch that our slip stitches coming out of. Of course you can use a chain one, completely up to you. Get out of there. And then this row we are going to do 2 stitches by themselves between the increases. Just grabbing some yarn again. So putting our stitch marker in. Seriously, all thumbs today. This is my first video since I've been on holiday, so maybe I'm out of practice. Get all nervous. Okay, so 1 by itself in the next stitch, 1 by itself. In the next stitch we're going to do an increase, so that's 2 stitches into the same stitch. So over the next 2 stitches you're going to do 1 by itself and 1 by itself. So now it's an increase into the next one. Can you see a pattern forming yet? So it's 1 into the next one, 1 into the next one, and then an increase, so it's 2 into that same stitch. 1 by itself, 1 by itself, 2 for the increase. It's not starting to ruffle up too bad yet. That just went like that because I was holding it. So see how it keeps its shape? That's what we want, because we're going to need to keep the shape. So if you know me, you'll know that I make my videos as I go along. Sometimes I've already made the hat to test it out. Most of the time, nope. I just get on camera and hope for the best. Most of the time it works out. So just putting that stitch back in because it was all funny. So you want to repeat this all the way around until we get to the stitch marker. Now if you are using that single crochet instead of the chain one for the first stitch, you'll notice you have this stitch left, but it's not actually a stitch. It's sort of like where you carry up the yarn, if that makes any sense, because I've just been skipping that and then slip stitching into the first stitch of the row, because it kind of like, if you hold it up so it's straight, it goes down at an angle. That's how I know it wasn't part of the stitch. You won't even see it. So slip stitching to join. Be careful you don't stab yourself with your safety pin. Not very safe, are they? They've got a sharp end on them. Anyway. So as you can see, mine is starting to curl up there. Even if I squash it. Oh no, it stayed flat. But I am going to now add 1 row of just single crochet all the way around. And this should help with this rippling effect. You can put it anywhere you like in the hat if yours starts to go wavy. Doesn't matter where you put it. And then after you do that 1 row, you want to get to it quick. So you want to get to it before it starts to get really wavy. If it just starts to go a little bit, that's when you want to put it in. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so after you've done your 1 row of single crochet, then you carry on with the next increase row. Because by putting 1 stitch in every stitch, you're not changing the amount of stitches that you've done on this row. So your next row is going to be exactly the same, so you can continue on with the next row of increase. So you could probably use this for many different things. An eyeball, an ear, heaps of things really. I'm sure you could get creative. You can make 2, sew them together, put a loop on the top. You got a Christmas decoration. I don't know. Like I say, you can do lots of things with crochet. So let's put that back on there. I'm going to work my single crochet back into my little tiny hole there. Putting my stitch marker in. And we're going to do 1 in every stitch around. So I'm going to show you a little bit, because I actually have people that don't speak English following my videos. So they're really going off what I'm doing rather than what I'm flapping my gums about. So we're just doing 1 in every stitch. I think that's quite awesome. Like, there is a lady, I can't think of her username, and I'm pretty sure she's Spanish, and I watch her videos, can't understand a thing she's saying apart from uno, which I think is 1, and maybe the chain. I don't know what the word is for it, but I can recognise it when she says it. And I actually follow her by what she's doing, not by what she's saying. I love to listen to her actually, because the Spanish language sounds really cool. Must learn Spanish. So I'll stop yakking. You can do 1 stitch in every stitch around till we get back to the beginning. So we slip stitch to the first stitch, which I'm making look very hard. So that seems to be laying flat. You may need to add 1 more row of single crochet by itself, because it's so tight, but we need that for our pattern. It's having a moment saying, no, I don't want to lay flat. So if yours isn't laying flat when you swash it, maybe add 1 more row of single crochet. Won't matter how many you add, because you're only just expanding what you've got. You're not actually increasing the amount of stitches, you're just making it a bit wider. So our next row, and if you can't remember where you're up to, go back to your increase row, which is what I'm going to do. We've got 2 into that stitch, 1, 1, and then 2 in the next. So we know that our next row, that one's got 2 between the increases. We know our next row that we add of increase has to be 3 between the increases. So going into that little stitch for our single crochet, you can use chain 1 like I said, either way, whichever you feel comfortable with. So it's 1 by itself, we need 3, remember, 1 by itself, 1 by itself, get out of the way. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3. So 1 by itself, 1 by itself, 1 by itself, and an increase. Because we need 3. What did I just do there? Was that a half double crochet? We need 3 by themselves. 1, 2, 3, and into that same stitch. So it's 1 by itself, 1 by itself, 1 by itself, and an increase. So can you see that pattern forming there? You got 1 by itself, 2, 3 by themselves, and then an increase. So repeat that all the way around, remembering that you are going to be ending on an increase when you get to your last stitch, and you will do that in most of my patterns. I could probably say all of them, but I'm not sure. I'll have to actually look at everyone, but we're just plain stitching like this, you are going to end with an increase. That's how I know that I haven't made a mistake, which does happen. So keep going until you get back to the beginning. So we're going to slip stitch to join, and mine's actually starting to go wavy, so remembering that this is the stitch here because that was just the little bit that carries up, which could confuse you because you might add a stitch in there. But I've been skipping that one, and I know it's right because I'm ending on an increase. Haha, see, my method works. So what are we doing? We need to go back into that stitch and do our single crochet. Come on, don't make me look silly on camera. Put in your stitch mark. And look, mine is just not working. It is when I lay it flat like that. But what I'm going to do, because it is starting to not be very nice to me, I'm going to put one more row of single crochet by itself. You can add 2 if you need to. See, when it's like that, it is laying quite flat, which is fine. But if it's starting to curl, mine's just doing it a tiny bit. See how it kind of lifts up a bit? I'm going to put one row of single crochet by themselves just to help it out a little bit. So after we do that, we'll go on to our next row of increase. If yours isn't curling up, then yay for you. You won't need to put these rows of single increases in. Rows of single crochets in by themselves. So just follow along. So as we're working our way, you are measuring as you go, because we need to get it to our head circumference. Obviously this isn't going to fit me because I'm not about 5 years old, and I've got a big head too, I think. So at the moment it's only 43. I need to get it so it's about 56 or 7 because I've got a 58 centimetre head. So I've still got a few increase rows to go. If you've got enough, so far it's up to here. If you've got enough, you can stop. If not, keep going. And after you get your circumference that you need, you just do one stitch in every stitch. This will start to make the sides of the beanie. But I need to keep going, so I'll keep showing you the increase rounds. So I've slip stitched to join, and now I'm going to do my single crochet into the same stitch. Putting in my stitch marker. And now what we need to do is, what did we have before? We had 3 in between, was it? So there's an increase, 1, 2, 3, increase. So it's, this row is going to be 4 in between. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase. So it's 2 in the same stitch. You're going to repeat this all the way around until we get back to the beginning. So don't forget, you're going to end on an increase, so it's 2 in the same stitch. This isn't the stitch because it's just the little bit where we carry it up. So moving our stitch marker. If you do your chain 1, you won't have that little tiny stitch there. So slip stitching into the top. Let's have a look. It is a little bit curly because I've been holding it funny. Let's just smooth it out. Ah, yay, it's laying flat. That's good. That's exactly what I wanted. So let's measure. See how we're going. I want about 56, 57 centimetres. Because it's not going to stretch too much, because as you can see, a little bit stretch, but not a lot. Not as much as when you use a double crochet stitch. So up to 58 centimetres, so I've still got, it's up to there, so I've still got quite a bit more increasing to go, because I need to get up to about here. Oh, man, taking forever, but it's all good. It's because we're using the single crochet stitch that is taking so long. So keep going. Hopefully, if you're using thicker yarn than me, you won't already be past your increasing rows. So what we want to do is work that single crochet into there. So before we worked 4 in between our increases, so now we want to do 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just putting that in there so I don't forget. So our next one is an increase. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase. Repeat this all the way around until we get back to the stitch marker. So I'm up to the end. I'm going to slip stitch to join. Oh, come on. And then we're going to work our single crochet into that same space. Put in our stitch marker. So if you keep going, you're going to put one more stitch in between each increase. So I'm up to 6 and then an increase. And repeat that all the way around. If you need more, the next row will be 7 and so on. So I'm not going to show you how to do any more increases because I'm sure by now you've got enough. Unless you're using thinner yarn than me, you will need more rows. So once I'm up to my correct size, I will show you what we need to do next. So there we go, that's what mine is up to, and this is going to get very slightly bigger because, because where you have done your increases around, they're like squashed up into the stitch because there's 2 into the same stitch, so it's going to get slightly bigger because these ones where your increase is just going to move apart a bit on your next round, so it is going to get slightly bigger on that first round of single crochet by itself. So that goes with any hat. So just ignore those other rows of single crochet by themselves that we did. When you do your very first round of single crochet by itself, it is going to get slightly bigger because you've got those little increases. So the next round is just going to space them out evenly. so it will increase slightly. I can't give an exact measurement, but it is going to increase slightly. So like you saw, mine was 56.5, I need it to be 58, and it's got a little bit of stretch, so that should, fingers crossed, fit my head. If not, Mrs. Foamy is going to look very stylish because she has got a smaller head than me. So what we need to do now, as you can see, the seam that's here, it doesn't stand out as much with that single crochet instead of the chain 1. It's even better with when you do a double crochet stitch. You use a single crochet and a chain 1 instead of the chain 3, and it works out heaps better. I really do like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, my owl video that uses that method in that beanie. So going into the next stitch, and every stitch around you are going to work 1 single crochet, and you're going to keep going until it's long enough to fit you like a normal beanie, but we are going to add more rounds because the top of the hat takes up some rounds, so it's going to make it shorter once we do the top of our hat. But just keep going until it fits you. That way we can add rows after we fix the top part of the hat. So I will leave it to it, and I'll meet you back when we're ready to go. Once you have your hat tall enough, to show how tall mine is, it's about 13 centimeters. It's 13 centimeters, which, what's that in inches? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5.5 inches. So once you've got the height that you desire, then we need to work on the brim. So I'm up to just where I'm joining my row. So we're going to work on our brim. We're going to put our single crochet into the first stitch, or use your chain 1. Of course, camera's on. What's going on? How many times have I done a single crochet? Probably 1 billion or 1 squillion times. Because that camera's going. It's not going to work. So I'm just grabbing my stitch marker, putting him back in there. So on our brim, we are going to do 1 into one stitch, 1 into the next one, and increase in the next stitch. If you find this is going too wavy, you're going to want to pull back to this row and then do 1, 2, 3 by themselves and then increase. That will help it from going wavy. Or you could do this first row. If it's starting to go wavy, just do rows of just 1 single crochet in each stitch, and that should flatten your brim. Not flatten it, but make it so it's not wavy. So we've got 1, so we need 1 in the next. And I'm using 2 strands of yarn, and I'm using the same size hook that I have. If your stitches aren't really tight, you need to drop down to a smaller hook. So we've got 1, 2, and then we're going to increase in the next, so that's 1, and then in the same stitch we're going to do another one. We're going to go in the next for 1 single crochet, and my yarn is just about to run out, so I'm just going to grab my new ball, which I have ready. Joining in a new colour with 2 yarns, what you're doing, you're going to drop the one that's about to run out, so that's this one, so goodbye. And then when you join the colour in, you've got to link it over, so loop it over like that. But then you've also got to join this one in too, so loop that over, loop your new yarn over, it's quite tricky, and then pulling both through at the same time. If you need to, pull down on those stitches to get them tight, and then you can work over your ends. So I had 1, 2, increase, 1 into the next stitch, that's number 2, and then increase in the next. So go into the next stitch, we're going to do an increase, that's 2 single crochets into that same stitch. Sorry, my yarn is getting caught. So we're going to repeat this all the way around until we get to the stitch marker again. 1, 2, and then 2 in the same stitch. And by increasing on this round, what it's going to do is make our brim flare out, and it should look like the brim on our top hat. So repeat that all the way around, 1 in one stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then 2 in the next, all the way around until we get to our stitch marker. So once we get around, we are just going to, I've got an increase there, and then we're going to do some single stitches, and then if it doesn't end up working out even, you're going to do an increase in your last stitch, because our next increase is here. We want an increase that's around about here. So I'm going to, so I've got an increase in here, so I'm doing 1 in that stitch. Then I'm just going to do an increase in the next stitch. It's going to be 1 stitch out, but that is not going to make a difference. And then I need to join to my next stitch, because that's where the stitch marker was. Then this row we are going to make just 1 single crochet in each stitch. I keep doing that stitch too tight. There we go. So this row is 1 stitch in each stitch, and the next row we're going to repeat that increase row again. And we're going to repeat these 2 rows until our brim is wide enough. So when you get to the end, you're going to cut off your yarn, and then thread your tails through this loop that we've got here, and then sew in our ends.